Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric on our continuing series, the Unported playlist, where we take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today we're taking a look at Emergency Call Ambulance, released on the Sega Model 3. But before we get too far involved, if you could do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And we have a Patreon now, so if you feel so inclined to support the channel, that link is below. And I think we've covered pretty much every Model 3 arcade game at this point in time, and I've said on many videos before that it is kind of, to me, nostalgic-wise, one of my favorite arcade platforms around. And Sega loved making games based on work-related items. You have Emergency Call Ambulance, where you're playing as an ambulance driver. You have Brave Firefighters running on the Sega Hikaru, where your entire job is to fight fires. And they seem to really like making games that involved that sort of thing. And now that we're into the main game, I kind of sped up through the intro a little bit because it's interesting, but you kind of got the gist of it. You only have one goal in this game, and that is to get to the hospital before your time runs out. And you have to avoid hitting things, because every strike, every impact you have is going to take time off the health meter. Because you see you have your patient there in the corner and their condition is stable, but if we get into any accidents, if we run into trees, hit a cop car there, we lost a second, and then 2 for hitting the gate. So really the entire crux of this game to be successful is picking a line and being able to drive it extremely well. Because to beat a level only takes about a minute to a minute and a half if you're doing it well. So memorization is hugely important. And this game kind of feels like Crazy Taxi, except as opposed to bringing people to KFC, you're bringing injured children to the hospital. Granted, it's not real life and this kid's just virtual, so if he unfortunately perishes, it's not a big deal. We throw more quarters in the machine. But I love that those balloons fly by there. There's a lot of stuff going on in the game and a lot of shortcuts that you can take. Is it the most in-depth arcade game ever? Absolutely not. It's a very quick play, but just like Harley Davidson and LA Riders on the Model 3 as well, or Crazy Taxi, the fun is trying to compete against your high score and to trying not to lose the game. Because you'll see here, we're going to roll up into the hospital. We have about 5 seconds left on the clock, and we just made it. And when you're playing the game really well and you almost make it and just get through, it feels great. And you'll see here that we get different qualifiers at the end. We were brave and he came in as stable. But you can do secret achievements, you can do no damage runs. There's a lot of different ways to play the game, and that is the fun part. And because it emulates so perfectly on Supermodel, picking up and playing this game and checking it out is extremely easy because I'm using the Xbox One controller and everything feels great. Now granted, your ambulance does control like a brick on wheels, but that's because I've never driven an ambulance, but I'd highly presume they're not the most nimble things. This isn't a Lamborghini, it's a big giant van with flashing lights on the top and medical equipment in the back. But the game gets more and more difficult as you go on. And even though I turned this down to easy, it still is very difficult to beat the game. And that is just a staple of Sega arcade racing games or any sort of game that Sega produces with a timer. It becomes extremely difficult to actually be able to beat the thing with the time you're given. And even if you run this course 4, 5, 6 times, you'll see that there's cars flying at you. And it feels like Sega loves this formula because Crazy Taxi had a similar thing. We've shown Wild Riders, the Naomi 2 game, where you're jumping bridges and cars are flying at you. This seems like a staple of what Sega loves to make for arcade games. There's always distractions, there's always things to hit, the timer's always going to be a problem. You just have to navigate through this near perfectly to get to the end, and you can't make that many mistakes because not only do they slow you down, but they take your time off as well, or the health meter, which is really just a timer. And that's the tricky part, is that every mistake is a double penalty. You lose speed, you lose time. And unfortunately, that cop perished. I mean, granted, he's virtual, so what does it really matter? What we're going to do is I'll show you the same run again without me talking. That way you can hear some of the sound effects and some of the different voice inputs. But you'll see here, I am turning the game down to very easy. And I never usually show the game assignment settings in the background, but I thought this is what it looks like when it's on easy. So enjoy.
A policeman attacked by gang members at County Center. He was caught in an explosion caused by a small-sized missile. Bone fractures in left shoulder and right thigh. Minor burns from his thighs up to his chest. Blood loss of 1,000 cc. Blood pressure 70/50. Pulse 120. Respiration 70. GCS 12.
Turn right here. Turn left here. Turn right here. Waiting. 1,500 cc's. Don't want another accident.
And unfortunately we failed again, and this is on very easy. And I will say that this is one of the harder games I've ever played from Sega because it feels a little bit cruel when you hit something. Not only do you lose health but speed at the same time. So actually winning this game takes a lot of time and a lot of practice, and that's what I really enjoy about it, because you're not pumping quarters into the machine, you're just playing the game. I also like the fact that it takes place in Chicago, and we're coming up on Lakeshore Drive here, a road that I take very frequently. Now granted, this isn't a perfect facsimile of Chicago because none of this really exists, but I always like a game that takes place in the city that I live in. But you can definitely tell that Sega was noodling around with the idea of Crazy Taxi before the game ever came out, because this feels as close to Crazy Taxi as you're going to get before they hit it big with that game. Now, is it the most fair game to play? Totally not. It takes a long time to get really good at it, and to see the ending, you're going to have to play the courses over and over and over again until you can finally memorize the layout of everything. But in that respect, it kind of feels like a puzzle game mixed with a driving game, and that's something that you don't see that often. And as those balloons go by again, I like that Sega put so much effort into the visual of this game itself, because it's really fun. You get all these different intercuts on that screen at the top there where you can see your patients going into shock. So there's a lot of care and consideration put in the game. Now, would I buy this game as a PCB and put it in my collection? I wouldn't. It's expensive, you have to rig up wheels and pedals, and even on very easy on the original level now, I still can't win. And it's just a pain to play. It's really hard, but you want to keep playing it. You want to solve the puzzles of the course and deal with it like that. If you ever do see a cabinet for this game, definitely throw a few quarters in, because your odds of seeing one again are very, very low. And that's why I fast forwarded through that cutscene at the beginning. I figured I'd show it to you guys in the end, because I do love how high that car flies over the tanker. But short of that, that is Emergency Call Ambulance. It's an awesome Model 3 game that is hard as nails. Like I said earlier, if you could do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It takes a lot of time and energy to make each and every one of these episodes, and we appreciate your support. If you got any questions or comments, leave them below. I love chatting with you guys. Short of that, I will be back on Tuesday and Friday with more episodes in those series, and we will be back next Sunday with another brand new Unported arcade game. Because you guys keep watching the videos, I love making them, so we're going to keep it going until you guys get sick of it. Thanks so much for watching. Don't get any accidents. Bye-bye.